What's up, everybody? Welcome to the first ever video of the Running Through Podcast YouTube page, or the Running Through YouTube page. Not quite sure what I'm going to call it yet. It'll be a nice one to start out with because last year on the podcast I opened it up with my 2017 Chicago Marathon preview and review. So kind of going full circle on the whole thing. I've been wanting to do this for a while now, so might as well just take the plunge. Live here from my parents' living room as I'm currently still in St. Louis, but it's good. It's a good time. Good acoustics, good lighting, and we'll go from there. If you listen to my preview on the Running Through podcast, which I will link in the YouTube description down below, I had framed the 2018 Chicago Marathon as being a Galen Rupp versus Mo Farah showdown. Now, there are probably way more qualified runners in the field. I really wasn't expecting Mo or Galen to win or get anywhere close to the top finish. I was proven wrong big time, as we'll find out later in the review. And given that, Galen Rupp wasn't even the top Nike Oregon Project finisher. But again, we'll move into that later. What I really wanted to paint was Mo Farah versus Galen Rupp. Is there bad blood? Have they grown apart since they're not training partners anymore? Since Mo doesn't live in Portland anymore? Since Mo Farah has distanced himself as much as possible from the Nike Oregon Project? What will we see? Now, you can never count Mo Farah out. He's a double gold medal winner. He is a championship racer. The only way that Mo Farah wasn't going to be able to win this race, which is kind of what I thought was going to happen, is that it was going to go out too fast and that he didn't quite have the pedigree to pull off a 2:03 or 2:04 marathon. That's still to be seen. But Mo Farah was the victor of this race, running a 2:05. Really just showing off some of those tactics we see on the track and putting in a big move over the last mile and pulling away by about 20 seconds. And from 23 to 26 miles, Mo Farah ran 4:41, 4:40, 4:40. From 23 to 26 miles, Mo Farah ran 4:41, 4:42, 4:40. So really just closing down that gap hard and kind of makes you think he has more in the tank. Because Chicago, just like the Cowbell, which I ran here in St. Louis, it was hotter than normal and it was humid. And for those of you who are unaware, the ideal running temperature is 55 degrees, low humidity. That is where, especially for the marathon, that's where you're going to run your ideal race. That's where you can't factor weather into it. Those conditions are perfect. The weather is going to be perfect for you to run fast. For each 10 degrees and for each 10% of humidity up from that, you can pretty much calculate 10 seconds per mile based on the degree over 55 degrees. Now, it's not perfect. You're not necessarily, if you run, 2:30 in 90 degree weather, doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be a 2:10, 2:05 marathon runner in 55 degree weather. But it is saying that the ideal temperature, if you're running at that 90 degree weather, you can run a hell of a lot faster at 55 degrees. For instance, in my own training, I did my 22 miler at, probably the most, it was like 40s and cool and not a lot of wind. And I felt really good and I ran it at 6:50 pace. The marathon on Sunday, it was 80 degrees and humid, and I ran the first half at 6:50 pace and crashed and burned hard because I was just dehydrated and hot and humid and didn't work out well for me. But back to Mo Farah. He ran the perfect race that you'd want to see him run. Went through the half. He was in the back of that lead pack. They went through in 63:06. Mo Farah said he wanted to go through in 62. It's a little bit slow, but if the lead pack isn't going to go and your goal is to win the race, you got to stay with that pack. If that pack is going to blaze it and go like we see in London under world record pace, then maybe you don't go with them. But if they're hanging back and you're going through in 63, you had 13 miles to put on the paint, which Mo did. Sat back, kept moving up with the pack, and then dropped Crewy over the last 3 miles. So at 4:41, 4:42, 4:40, and his finish was superb. Maybe not quite the tack that we see on the track just because of the long distance, but hey man, it worked. So I think with that being said, my favorite part of the race when Farah dropped back off the lead, he dropped behind Galen Rupp, he dropped behind Asako, And then you saw a rallying point. Mo didn't give up. He kept bringing them back, kept reeling them back in, as I say, act like there's a rope between you and your opponent, and you just keep reeling them in. He caught up to Rupp, he caught up to Asako, and they're still off the lead pack. But this is where I think that maybe all this drama that I did play up of Mo versus Rupp might have been overplayed, because they worked together. The former Nike Oregon Project teammates of Asako, Galen Rupp, Mo Farah, worked together as there is a fucking train coming by. Worked together. Oh, man. Alright, we're just going to have to bear with it because this is going to be a long train. Worked together and pulled back the leaders. So finally, Mo gets with the leaders, then he makes his move and disconnects from them. Meanwhile, Asako really stayed on. He finished strong, ran a Japanese marathon record, was the fastest Nike Oregon Project member of the day, and Galen, it just didn't look like he had it. He was in position. When we think of a Galen Rupp race, Galen and Mo raced very similarly. They want to use their track acumen over the last couple miles of the race to really put it into gear. But Galen put himself in that position and then wasn't able to follow through. Have we seen as far as Galen can go in the marathon? If we look at him and Mo's time, Galen should be a 204, 205 marathoner, but we just haven't seen that high end yet. And when you look at Galen versus someone like an Eliud Kipchoge or the top Kenyan marathoners, those PRs are very similar over the shorter distances. But the marathon is a hell of a thing, and crazy things happen, and sometimes you're just not going to be able to do what you want to do over 26.2 that you can do over a mile of 5K or 10K. So I want to leave that question up to you. Let's get a little bit of engagement going. Where do you think that Mo Farah and Galen Rupp's top end are? Do you think that Mo can go under 205? Do you think that Mo could be a 204 marathoner? And him and Galen both have World Marathon Major wins under their belt. But in a field such as London or such as Berlin or one of the faster marathon majors, do you think that either of them can pull out a win there? Do you think that they can be sub 204? First off, do you think they can be sub 205 marathon runners? Second off, do you think they can be sub 204? Let me know in the comments. Now, moving on to the women's race, it was not a good day for the Americans, or for the former Americans. Alexi Pappas didn't have a great debut, and Gwen Jorgensen didn't break 2:30. So, with Gwen, when you put it out publicly that your goal is to win the 2020 Olympic marathon race, coming from her triathlon background of being the best in the sport and then wanting to take on marathoning and running full on, and then putting your goals out there and document every step of the way, it makes a race like this, where you don't run up to your potential, hard to swallow. Because it's out there. She's on record as saying that she wants to, if you're going to go for gold in the 2020 marathon, you need to be sub 220 or around that range. Because on race day, anything can happen. You just have to be at that level. But from the looks of it right now, Gwen's not at that level. And I'm a big fan of hers. I love kind of her media team. I love what she's doing for the sport in terms of awareness and sponsorships and everything she brings from that triathlon side of basically having her own media team. More runners need to do that, and I think more runners will, seeing her success in that realm. But all of it's kind of for naught if she can't at least be on the podium or near the podium. At this point, that's not even going to get her into the Olympics. That's not going to be top 3 at the trials. Where do you go from here? Now, she's looking at it long term. So I think she's come out and said that while it's disappointing, this wasn't her goal race. So they're at the long term, which makes you think that maybe they weren't as sharp for this race as they would be for, say, the Olympic trials or the Olympics in 2020. Still have a year to the trials, still have a while, over a year to the trials, still have a while to the Olympics. But a lot of work needs to be done. She needs to chop off 13 minutes off her marathon time, which is a tough ask. So we'll see where that goes. What do you think is going to happen with Gwen Jorgensen? Do you think she is going to get to that goal, or do you think that she has reached her limit in the marathon? Let me know. And that's tough to say, because I'm a big Gwen fan, but hopefully it gets better from here on out. So, anyways, let me know what you guys think. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to the YouTube page. We're just starting out. Hopefully it gets better from here. If you want to listen to a more in-depth analysis of this video, running through podcasts, I talk about these kind of topics as well as personal topics, and all through the lens of mental health and just being a runner. Something I enjoy doing. You can subscribe at RunThroughItPod on Twitter and Instagram at RunThroughItPod. Subscribe to me, Justin Horniker, at HornikerJustin on Twitter and Instagram. I'll give you updates. I talk a lot of smack. I talk a lot of Blues hockey, which is a fun little thing. Anyway, so make sure you subscribe. Give it a little thumbs up on this video. Tell a friend. Let me know what you think. I would love to hear your thoughts on Mo and Galen and on Gwen Jorgensen. And let's have a discussion down in the comments. So, happy running.
I'm here to change the game up, I'm here to shuffle up the deck. You'll probably think I'm famous cause I got a blue check. I remember playing ball up in Montreal, Quebec. The richest people that I met, they said they really were from Czech. My sales pitch deadly, so you better